I thought I'd make a quick video for you just on my cell phone to give you some input about the political compass results that all of you took, or most of you took anyway. This is my schoolroom. Actually, I homeschool my 7-year-old. I've actually got a 21-year-old son and a 7-year-old son. So ignore the background. Well, maybe. Cool dinosaur, huh? Anyway. Okay, so a little bit about the results. The reason that I give the political compass quiz is because it's an international test. So what that means is that it's not based on U.S. philosophy necessarily by itself, but this is textbook ideologies that have been passed down from, for generations. These are the actual ideologies themselves, not what someone else believes that they are, not what someone else said that they are, or modified ideologies. These are actual ideologies that we can study and mark. So that's why I gave it to you, because as U.S. citizens sometimes we have a difficult time trying to look at things without bias. Believe it or not, and I saw a lot of the comments that you had put about media and media being biased. Yeah, in this day and age, it's true that you do have to watch for media bias. And part of that's kind of our fault. I mean, we say, there are those of us who swear by Fox News, or there are those who won't watch anything else but Fox News, or CNN, or MSNBC, or, you pick which news you want to hear. The truth of the matter is, when you start getting to the study of media in politics, is that in the United States, we're one of the only countries in the world that sensationalizes our news. And by sensationalizing, it means making a mountain out of a molehill. That means making something out of nothing if it's really there. Now, it does not mean that we never get any good news. In fact, there was a study done in 2000 that said that, and this was done by the George W. Bush administration. They wanted to find the top 10 news sources in the United States that were the least biased, or the most unbiased. And I'll go ahead and let you know that the #1 news source that you can watch that gives you both sides of a story that is unbiased in nature is NPR, National Public Radio. And I find it interesting that there have been threats in the past year to try and cut down on their credibility. One of the factors about media, and I'm getting to the ideology part by addressing this, because a lot of you, one of the questions was about media, and a lot of you addressed this. The thing about it is that you can find good news if you know where to look. And that's probably the hard part. But the beauty of you taking this class is that you can see actually how government works. You can see what is possible, what's not possible, and it also allows you to be the watchdog over these, a president or your representatives or your governor or any of your local officials anywhere. If you know how the system works, then you know what they can and cannot do. And if you're paying attention, you'll be able to see what it is exactly that people are doing if you go straight to the source themselves. But that's, a discussion for on down the road, especially when you get to media. Now, as far as the ideology tests, I've been doing this for the past 15 years. I've used the exact same test. I've actually tried to pull all of those results together in a study. And the interesting thing to me is that most times, most students have no idea where they actually are, and a lot of that has to do with our frames of reference. If you haven't come across them yet, you talk about influences on you in society, our primary and secondary influences. Primarily our parents, help mold us into how we think. Our church, our schools, our groups of friends, organizations, our workmates, everything and anything is out there unless we're really paying attention, that it could influence us in our political decisions. So the test is when you see your results, and I get people every year who say, I had no idea that I was like this. I even had one student, and this was last year, and she made me laugh the most, because when she found out that she wasn't quite as authoritarian as she thought she was, she said, well, I'm a little disappointed in my results because I thought I would be a lot more far to the right than I was, but, you know, you can't believe everything. One of the hardest things to do when you see these tests is to actually accept, oh God, this is really where I am, so am I voting for the people in office who actually support what I believe or I think or I feel, how I think things should be run. And in the United States, within the past 25 years, there's been this attempt to hijack, basically, the American public. If you see anything about them redrawing district lines, or the courts mandating that district lines be redrawn, it's called gerrymandering when you draw it according to political party. In reality, our voting districts are supposed to be drawn by people, by population only. Party has nothing to do with how we draw the lines, or it shouldn't. But in the past 25 to 30 years, one party in particular, party in charge right now actually, has worked on redrawing the lines in such a way that it moves away from what the majority wants to what is more favorable for them. You don't have to take my word for it. Just go out and research it a little bit. You're going to see the numbers and the statistics and the court cases, and you'll see what they said themselves. There was actually in Texas Monthly, there was an article back in 2003 where a Republican whistleblower actually said, yeah, that's what we set out to do. That's what we're trying to do. He got in trouble. He didn't win re-election, and then that sort of all went under the carpet, so nobody knew what happened to it. Well, now you see it. Now you saw last year a presidential election where the majority of votes were for the other candidate. However, because they had worked so studiously on the Electoral College and redrawing those lines in such a way that favors them, then that gave them the office itself. So it's not the first time we've seen this in history. We've done it 4 times. Each and every time, we learn our lesson for about this long, and then we forget, and then we do it all over again. So what you're looking at ideology-wise, don't be so upset. I told one student, I left it in a comment, I'm trying to answer as many of your comments as I can. When you use the words liberal and conservative, the truth of the matter is there is no true liberal, and there is no true conservative. Let me explain what I mean by that. In the United States, you have 2 major parties. We've had them since almost the beginning in some form or fashion. They finally modified and pulled themselves into the Democrats and Republicans we know by the 1930s, finalizing that by 1960. Okay, so that's where we are as far as how the parties have changed and modified to meet the needs of the people. But what we do know as a general rule is that either you believe that there should be more moral restraints on society, anti-gay rights, anti-abortion, harder on specific crimes, more moral constraints on society, or you can be for more economic constraints, watching businesses, making sure that Wall Street doesn't take advantage of the people who are investing money in them, making sure that businesses take care of their workers, that they truly pay them their wages, what they're worth. So in reality, you'll have one party, like Democrats, who in the past at least 70 years have been more for moral rights, less moral oversight, and more economic restraint. Whereas you'll find Republicans who will be on board with absolute moral constraint, but hands off the economy. And this tends to generate and resound with the new Christian movement. We've had several upswings of it over the years, and we've had a new one in the past maybe 15, 20 years. We have it every now and then, especially after a war. But Christians can resound with this because they're accustomed to the moral restraints that are put on them in Christianity. And so you'll see a